Hello, welcome to this edition of our discussion. My name is Emeka Uwonye, founder of the Due Process Advocates (DPA). Yesterday, we opened a talk in connection with developments in the eastern part of Nigeria. That is the confrontation between the ESN and the Nigerian government, Nigerian army, in Imo State. As I indicated yesterday, even though we are emphasizing Imo State at the moment, the trend and the problems we're looking at go far beyond one state. The entire states, 5 states of a southeast region is having a problem, a serious problem, and there is so much tension right now. Police stations have been attacked repeatedly, and the leader of IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, continues to make pronouncements. Indeed, there is more going on from the point of view of what he says than from the point of view of any visible activity of ESN on the ground. However, having commenced this discussion, and I indicated we will continue because the problems are quite multifaceted. They have so many aspects to it and several dimensions to it that it wasn't something that could be exhausted in one particular session of a discussion. And since we opened our discussion yesterday, I've received so many questions. The most constant question has been the way forward. People ask me, what is the way forward? It's not enough to point out the shortcomings or the limitations of ESN and IPOB or Nnamdi Kanu, that we need to have a way forward. These questions are coming from very moderate and reasonable people from the eastern part of Nigeria. They know that it's not enough to pontificate. It's not enough to point fingers. The people want solutions. They want things, the violence going on in the east, to stop. And when I speak of violence, we go back and talk about the violence of the herdsmen, the havoc the herdsmen are wreaking on the population and in the east, and the retaliatory violence, that is the responsory violence by IPOB or ESN. But remember, as I said, most of what we know about ESN comes from what Nnamdi Kanu either says in his broadcasts or what he shares in the social media, and much of that is propaganda. We know that. But one thing we also know is that Nigerian government is taking steps to do something about it. There has been significant mobilization of troops. And so the situation is grave enough. We cannot say because, it's all talk from Nnamdi Kanu, we should fold our arms and wait. There is tension. Some people have died. Violence continues to manifest. So it's important for us to look at the problems and discuss and seek to address them. Yes, we need to find solutions. We need to talk about solutions. But before you get to solutions, at least let us have some basic understanding of the problem. One major problem we have today among Igbo youths and among Igbos, wherever they are, all over the world, and among the Igbo elders as well, is that there has been a significant brainwashing. The mass of the Igbo population has been systematically brainwashed by the propaganda messages of IPOB, of course with Nnamdi Kanu as the chief spokesperson, who makes most of their utterances and pronouncements. There had been massive brainwashing. people have been misled into believing things that are absurd, and are acting on those beliefs. Yes, it's not enough to say it's a word, or a mere belief. Beliefs are important. What people believe is very important because it controls what they do. And that's why Voltaire said, if you want people to commit atrocities, you first have to get them to believe in absurdities. So the belief pattern, the information being passed on to the people, the propaganda being passed on to the people, has its effect on the way they behave and the way they act. I'll give you a series of instances, but let's start with Nnamdi Kalu's statement or claim that the president of Nigeria died 3 years ago and that he was replaced by a clone called Al-Sudani, Jibril Al-Sudani, as he called him. Such absurd claim is believed by many people. Many Igbo youths believe that President Buhari died 3 years ago, and some individual from Sudan replaced him and has been acting in his name. This is such a basic fallacy. This is absolute nonsense. It cannot be true. It doesn't even make sense to a child. How could President Buhari die and only Nnamdi Kanu will know it? The CIA doesn't know it. The MI6 doesn't know it. The British government, American government, CNN, all the institutions in the world did not know that Buhari died. Only Nnamdi Kanu knows it. You see, his followers are gullible. I have to use the word gullible because there is no other way to define or explain the behavior or the gullibility or the behavior of his followers. They don't even understand what it means, the status of a head of state in international law. They don't understand that just as nations are recognized, one of the attributes of nations, sovereign nations, is that other nations recognize them as such. Heads of states also are recognized as heads of state. Countries will not begin to deal with Nigeria if they don't know who the leader of Nigeria is. Nigeria will not be able to conduct diplomatic relationship, international relations, if its leader is unknown. If its leader could be something hidden. If he could die and nobody would know and you substitute with someone else, it doesn't make sense. But millions of Nnamdi's followers believe this, and it is controlling their behavior. It is so absurd, really. And by the way, if you understand the science of cloning, what he described as a clone cannot be a clone. If he had said that a look-alike, a Buhari's look-alike, was brought from Sudan to become the president of Nigeria, at least people can look like people. But to call him a clone is absurdity. So if a Sudanese citizen, a Sudanese man comes to Nigeria, becomes the president of Nigeria, what happens to his citizenship of Sudan? Or the Sudanese citizenship? His government, his country people will at least know that their citizen is also the president of Nigeria. So it doesn't really make sense. Nnamdi peddles this. The fact that he could persist on this sort of message and use it as one of the key factors of educating or sensitizing his followers, that is enough to suggest to you that IPOB's message is hollow. There's no substance to it. It is not sustainable. At some point, it's going to explode. So there have been similar lies. Okay, now, if Buhari died, how come PDP did not know about it? How come PDP decided to have and contest the election against a Sudanese man? It doesn't make sense. Atiku went to court challenging the result of the elections, all the way to the Supreme Court of Nigeria. How come that Atiku did not know that it wasn't Buhari, the real Buhari, that was running an election and challenging him in court? So, this story is absurd. If it was something said in passing, you can say, well, Nnamdi was making a joke. But this had become the key aspect of his message and the education of his people, or miseducation of his people. So you can take this, extrapolate it to other stories and propaganda messages he had peddled, and people believe it. But all right, one thing I swore I would not do is this. I don't want to point fingers at the shortcomings of Nnamdi Kanu alone. It is impossible to discuss Nnamdi Kanu without discussing the problems that led us to him. That will always be the central part of my message. If everything was working well in Nigeria, if Nigeria had not failed in many respects, without the shortcomings of Nigerian government, there wouldn't be Nnamdi Kanu or IPOB. So you can't discuss the shortcomings of IPOB without discussing the shortcomings of Nigeria. And you cannot discuss of solutions to the challenges we face without discussing, without tracing and finding out where things went wrong. Yesterday I highlighted the various ways governments at various stages and politicians, the political elite, helped create the crisis that led to the emergence and operations of IPOB. So we got to go back constantly and blame Nigeria. Nigerian government is the primary violator, the primary wrongdoer. The wrongdoing of the Nigerian government led to the wrongdoing of Nnamdi Kanu. Now, if we want to address the problems of Nnamdi Kanu and his IPOB, we have to address the problems of Nigeria. And as I indicated yesterday, we are going to ultimately get to the point of practical suggestions for solutions for the way forward to help Nigeria avoid crisis, a looming crisis. All right? Another question people have been asking me has to do with whether there was going to be war. People ask me this question all the time. Will there be war? What shall we do? Even though yesterday I hinted that if the crisis is not redressed quickly, it could snowball into war. Having said that, I do not foresee a conventional warfare in which one army will be fighting against another army in the southeast. I don't see that. Why? Because despite the braggadocio of Nnamdi Kanu, he doesn't have an army. ESN is not an army. ESN is not even capable of being called an insurgent in itself. What we have seen is a bunch of frustrated and misguided youth who came together and claiming to be ESN. It doesn't mean they don't have capacity to cause trouble. They have capacity to cause trouble. They have created appearances, and we know that the government is trying to blame them for being the unknown gunmen. What a term for government to call people unknown gunmen, but that is the situation we have. There was a confrontation, a shootout in Imo State. Such scenario could reoccur. It could become widespread. You could have criminal gangs terrorizing people in various pockets of different group sizes. It will not be a conventional war, but it will still be as destructive as a war, even worse, because you will have gangs roaming around, controlling various territory and fighting and shooting. And then you have the Nigerian military stepping in. And as we have known, once you involve the military into this sort of scenario, casualties mount. So we need to avoid it. We need to avoid it, particularly with the Igbos, because this will occur in Igbo territories. the sort of violence we are discussing now will occur in Igbo territories. We have a duty to control this process. If you look at what is happening in the western part of Nigeria, they too are crying out against the herdsmen activities. But the West seems to be very coordinated. And the critical advantage the West has, the Western states have, is that their youths have not alienated their governors, their state governments, as IPOB is trying to do. Nnamdi's inability to find a way to work with the governors of the southeastern states or to work with other groupings like Ohaneja is his biggest problem. And why is that so? It was suggested for ESN, whatever that meant, to be merged with Ebubeagu. Nnamdi kicked against it. Of course, there are reasons to doubt the Ebubeagu. The state governments waited. The governors waited for too long before they could go into Ebubeagu issue. It seemed they were just doing it because ESN was there. But of course, it was necessary. Once ESN came in as a private militia, the governors had to preempt it. Come up with something answerable to government. Merge ESN with Ebubeagu. Then you will have Amoteku. Amoteku, is answerable to the governments of the Western region. It's not something existing outside government structures. That is a key difference between it and ESN. Amoteku is properly equipped, had their equipment suitable for their purpose, and properly commanded and answerable to legitimate authority. So we cannot expect a confrontation between Amoteku and Nigerian soldiers. And at no point in the history of Amoteku did the Amoteku champion the idea of secession. So you got to understand, for us to move forward, we must immediately merge ESN with Ebubeagu. That brings ESN and Ebubeagu under the control and command structure accountable to government. That means that ESN is no longer a private militia. That means we can now have a basis to say to the soldiers, move back. There is no need to attack ESN because they are under the government. And that means also that the state governments will be able to give sureties or guarantee the conduct of the members of Ebubeagu. As it is now, no government in the East can vouch for ESN. None of them will allow to be held responsible for ESN. ESN is an uncountable entity which cannot be allowed to persist. So, the way forward that I can mention now is ESN must merge with Ebubeagu. If it merges with Ebubeagu, then Ebubeagu can continue the task of ridding our forests and bushes of herdsmen. It's a straightforward task. They will be equipped, they will be enabled to move in and deal with that. But if you think that ESN, which is accountable to IPOB and Nnamdi Kanu, both of whom had advocated and insisted that secession of the Biafra, or rather the restoration of Biafra, is their goal. If you think that that's going to work, it will never work. So once you mention ESN, once they gather anywhere, Nigerian government will probably step in to stop it. And regardless of what you think of President Buhari, regardless of what you think of the government of Nigeria today, there are certain things you can still expect the government to do. One thing they will do is that they will not allow ESN to operate. It doesn't make sense. Even these governors of the East should not, It's not in the interest of the East to have ESN. It's not in the interest of the Igbos to have an army that is answerable to one man outside government. So, I'm going to end this session, but let me emphasize that yes, we can make progress. First step is to merge ESN with Ebubeagu and make them answerable to legitimate government. And then on that basis, we can tell Nigerian military or Nigerian government that there is no need to mobilize troops, that what is happening in the East is just a criminal activity, not a war or insurgency, criminal activity attacking police station that is being done by criminals, and that it should be handled as a police operation rather than a military operation. Thank you so much for listening to today's session. We'll come back again soon. Bye.